Hello, team, and welcome to our final hit of Between Two Posts in 2021. Morgan Turinui, Sean Maloney, and off the bench, into the action, one of our real all-time favourites, Matty Tucky Dunning. Welcome, fella.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Thanks for having me, Morgs.
This is nice. You're stepping out of here straight to the golf course, off to Royal Ascot, dressed to go.
I might be right on the course, hopefully.
Yeah, nice one. Hey, mate, so good to have you here with us. Obviously, so many years with the Wallabies and Tars, 90 caps with the Tars, time with the Force, 45 caps with the Wallabies as well. And you get a chance to sit alongside a guy that used to play a bit of footy with too.
Mate, played a lot of footy with Morgs, yeah. He was a great teammate and a good punter. I used to love going to the races with Morgs. He'd give me a few tips because I was hopeless. I couldn't back a motorbike into a garage as Morgs knows. I'm dreadful. I'm the only bloke I know who could lose 600 in an afternoon. Biggest bet would be $10. I just keep putting them on and keep losing Quinellas, trifectas, and Morgs. Just look at me going, what are you doing? And no one was faster, I reckon, than me from the tab stool to the machine. I was pretty quick.
Good. Mate, Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, and Perth. It's easy to do.
Toowoomba as well. Rounded out at Toowoomba.
Cannington Greys at midnight. Don't remember that.
Park Alice Springs. Run me through what you're doing in rugby at the moment. Are you still involved? What do you do on that front?
Yeah, mate, not a lot. Got a young family now. So I did some coaching a couple of years ago with my second oldest boy who played at Waverley. So I helped out with the scrums at Waverley a couple of years ago. Really enjoyed that. He's going to play at Eastwood Colts this year. Finally got him back to Eastwood. So
I had him at the Wicks last year.
Oh, did you?
Too much travel. It's a long way to go.
Yeah.
Jesus.
That was a personal triumph getting a Dunning at Randwick. He's bloody good too. He's a good footballer.
Yeah, the grandfather Red Dunning was not happy at all playing for Randwick.
No.
It's actually softened. Randwick used to be his all-time hated, but obviously Sydney Uni has taken over that for everyone, so it's not the same.
I don't like that. I preferred it when we were hated.
Randwick's quite love. It's funny.
Randwick doesn't win anymore, so I think that's part of the reason why people take pity on them.
So yeah, hopefully be able to do a little bit of scrum stuff with them. Very keen to sort of. It gives me a good reason to be involved, and Eastwood. Obviously, I think especially if this is their last year at TG, because I don't know if we're going out. I don't know if we'll be travelling to the hills every weekend, but
it's not your go.
TG's a little bit more central. Do a little bit of ambassador works for X-Blades, rugby boots, footy apparel, so I do a bit with them, a good bunch of guys. And was doing a podcast, a bit of a community podcast, just a sort of grassroots style podcast.
You were doing one with Timmy Gilbert, weren't you?
Timmy Gilbert, yeah. So we during COVID we just stopped during the off season, but hopefully back on in February. Just more grassroots, sort of just touching on sort of. It's really fun, sort of interviewing sort of administrators and grassroots players, and have the odd Morgs come on, was great. Was a Wallaby and Randwick and Classic. So
I caught the Billy Melrose one. That was a good one.
Yeah, Billy Melrose did not miss. He
doesn't.
He just shot everyone.
Was that a 4-hour podcast? Billy Melrose,
Billy we had to cut it back, but Billy was great. You don't have to worry about us. Just say one word and Billy just goes. It was fantastic. Yeah. No preparation.
And it wouldn't even need to be rugby related. You could just say ladder to him and he'd go for 5 hours on the ins and outs of attacking players. Billy Melrose, who many will know. Hey, for those of you listening on via the podcast, I've got to tell you that Matt Dunning has come in and he looks $1 million. You ever been fitter?
It's a little bit deceiving. I can't run or do anything, but I'm doing a little bit of training again now. I actually blew back out to 113 kilos, not recently. So, the July of lockdown. So I just ate the first month. I had enough. Lockdown sort of broke me a bit. I was just over the second lockdown. I'm sort of anti-government a bit. We don't need to go into that anyway. I just don't like being told what to do. Sure. Pretty much. So what it's like. Anyway, so I blew out a bit, 5 extra kilos. Went, once in a lifetime opportunity. So I went on a 76-day juice fast. Wow. Had nothing but juice, tea and coffee, and frosty fruits. Of course, I had to put my own little spin on it, and lost 21 kilos, 76 days.
Amazing, eh?
And then just started training the last month. So I'm all or nothing. I'm either 100% on or 100% off, unfortunately.
And that's been in everything in life.
Everything.
Always,
Everything.
I remember once you went from beer to vodka Diet Coke. It was 50 vodka Diet Cokes a night.
What does
6 calories? That's all 6 calories.
But then he goes and plows his way through 3 kebabs and a pizza on the way home.
He's got a solid chunk of phenylalanine in his body.
Maybe even a pide.
What does Warry reckons I'm the first professional athlete to lose weight, get fit, and stop drinking after that time. So I sort of mixed it up a bit. Everyone goes the other way, but I've
You do, mate. You look really, really good. And I'll tell you who else looked really, really good across the weekend as we transition into our recap of the final round of Autumn Series games, the Wallabies. Despite going down 28-29 full-time in one of the most drama-filled, controversial test matches I can remember seeing. Let's get into it. Wallabies v Wales. Where do we start, Morgs? What was the moment that has still got you scratching your head days on?
There's a few, actually. I can't get... The Curtly Beale one is a head scratcher for me a bit. The try, obviously, off the... Was it a knockdown, knock on, knock back, whatever try? The play the whistle try. The Valentini one in the end wasn't that controversial. It's just an indication of where the game is. Then the other thing that I've really tried to focus on is the Wallabies played really well. The footy was good. The attack was really good, especially early when they were at 15 men. Look, I think there's lots of things out of the game. The one thing I want to remember is the Wallabies played well.
Yeah.
And then they played tough in the back end as well to get themselves in a position to win the game. And Wales, to their credit as well, found a way to close it out tough.
Yeah, I thought it was a great game, as you said. The question I got is, who's responsible? Is it always the defender's responsibility for a head clash? Is that how it is? So if
it is now. It didn't used to be, but it is now.
If because someone like me, I rang with my head lower. I drop my head. So if I drop my head and my head hits the defender, am I as a tackle responsible? Or is the defender still responsible? That's what I don't understand. Like I get that he could have changed his technique. So fair enough, a yellow card or a penalty. But where does it stop?
So your question is, so let's say that Valentini gets really low to the ground. Let's say he gets his head down to waist level.
Or even chest level.
Even chest level. Go to there. Let's go belly button, somewhere in between. So he gets his head to that level. And then on the way in, Adam Beard does the same thing. He drops his head into contact. And again, we have a high collision. I think it's still a head clash. I think
it's on the defender then.
I think it's still on the defender.
Yeah, the only thing on the attacker is... The attacker is responsible for not extending their limbs to initiate high contact with their arms. So if I'm running towards you, we saw it with Karevi in the World Cup in 19. Yeah. We saw that incident. If you separate your limbs from your body as a ball carrier and you initiate contact,
that's the only time.
That's really the only time we see that in the laws. Apart from that, it's all about the tackler finding a target on the ball carrier's body that isn't head and neck. So I think it was Nepo Laulala in the All Blacks game, where the carrier, a couple of weeks ago, where the carrier was really low and he came in from the side, he sort of hit there. And if I'm front on, I'm trying to make a front on tackle, there is no legal place that he could make that tackle. He either needed to go to the side and make a passive tackle, which he'd probably get sprayed by his coach on the Monday for making passive tackles, or do almost a little Falau Fainga, a little dive tackle we've been seeing a couple of times. And breakdowns becoming the same. It's very rare to find a legal way to clean out a guy in the jackal position now. Yeah, so we've got real issues around that.
But can't there be accidental head clash? There's no longer an accidental head clash.
Well, that's the question. That's a great question because the law around it is that it's foul play. That's why he gets red card the other night. But there's nothing foul about it. There's no intent there from Valentini to hurt him. Foul play for me is an eye gouge, a bite, a squirrel grip, something along those lines. We've all done that.
It's not wrong with that. We get that.
But on that same track, that's what it's become.
So here's the point. Remember the Taniela Tupou head clash 2 weeks ago against Scotland?
Yeah.
He's lucky that wasn't a red card.
But Taniela's lucky that he didn't get a red card.
Taniela got knocked out.
Yes.
HIA. He was the tackler or the person who tackled. He's lucky they didn't review that.
That's
great. Where we've got to.
He give the red card to the bloke. Sorry, mate, you're off.
The great Matty Bowman, the Bears head. Yeah. He sent me a message. He goes, so what happens? Like you could be stretched off and be given a red card on the way off. Now, it's all about lowering tackle height and player safety. Yeah. And it's because the world of rugby and the world of sport now are so scared of litigation, of this class action that is coming in the Northern Hemisphere. And then they're going to say, yes, it's player safety, but so much of it's that, right? So that I understand why, and we've probably gone too far past it on the dial.
Yeah.
But that bit's gone. And the Valentini one's not the place to fight your final battle of this because he just had to go lower.
He could have changed his technique.
He could have. Okay, so do you reckon there's scope there on that same tack, on your same line of thought, Tucky, where it's not foul play, it's an accidental head clash. So you don't lose a bloke for the entire game because there's no malice or misintent around it. Do you know what I mean? Like
you got to bring in that rule, the 20-minute.
Yeah.
bring the 20-minute one back.
You have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the question I've got is like, all right, I get the head injuries, I get it, and look, there has to be some. If you want to play rugby, you can't get rid of head injuries. It's just part of the game. We can diminish it. We do everything we can. What they're doing is great to a certain extent. But and maybe this is a terrible comparison, but they're not making boxing in UFC where you can't punch in the head anymore. Like you're not saying you just do body. Like so, what I'm saying is, I'm not suggesting that we go back to what we did. And I have 20 or 30 concussions over a career. I'm not suggesting that. We're doing the right things, but we can't get rid of it totally.
Yes.
Can we?
Well, it will never will because
No, you can't.
we
It's
talk about
impossible.
look at those situations with moving speed and late dips. We'll never get rid of contact. I think it is admirable to try and lower the tackle height for player safety. That's a great starting point. But also, rugby now is about immediate sanction. Often it was about, we weren't sure what happened there.
We'll side 'em.
Let's have a look at that after the game and you get 12 weeks. So now the immediate sanction in a game for kicking someone in the head is the same as the immediate sanction for that tackle by Rob Valentini, and that doesn't work. Not in the modern era where there's so much on these games. When you ruin a game by a guy being red carded in the first 15 minutes, if Rob Valentini looks at a guy on the ground and kicks him in the head, and we catch it on video, well, you're off for the rest of the game, mate.
Yep.
But getting your technique wrong, so he did, of the 10 jobs he has in defence, he did 9 of them exemplary well. Perfect.
Yep.
He got off the line. He attacked
Shoulder,
the ball player.
kick, shoulder, front on.
He tried to make a big hit for his team. He did everything but dip. Everything he did was perfect except dip. So he got 1 out of 10 things wrong, and he's gone for the game. He cost his team really any chance they should have had of winning the game.
Yep.
It's a miracle the Wallabies got so close. So that's where I advocate for what Tuck's saying. 20-minute red card, I think, is the middle ground. Then from there, sorry for talking too much,
That's
I agree.
I think we now roll back the sanctions on other parts of the game that aren't in that vicinity. So the deliberate knockdown, get rid of yellow cards for that. I'll tell you what, yellow card, if you do deliberate knockdown to save a try, maybe yellow card. Apart from that, scrum or penalty.
All right, okay. So let's park Valentini there because I think most Wallabies fans weren't like, I think they were more understanding of the fact that he'd been given the red card. Along again with you, Taki, that they don't like that he's gone for the entirety of the game, but they could kind of see where the referee and where the officials are coming from in that situation. The one that has been a massive struggle still now for a lot of rugby fans, you've watched the highlights, Taki, you've gone over it with a fine eye, was the Nick Tompkins try. So the one where everyone in the stadium stopped, every Welsh player bar the outside centre, every Wallaby paused because it was an absolute lay-down knock-on. Where do we start with that? Where do we start with it?
But the referee ruled us back, did he?
He ruled it back. Somehow he ruled it back. So this is what's led
The
so
referee
much
did the
confusion.
right thing, right? The referee went, play on, and then let's have a look at the video
What more can
because
he
the
do?
video's
Yeah.
there. So that's not wrong, right? Everyone on the field, we all forgot what we got told as a 5-year-old. Play the whistle.
Yes.
Park that because
Sure.
it looks so obvious.
Yep.
Okay, how did the TMO rule that as play on? That's where we got to get to.
How?
It almost
When you
looks like
offset it against what happened with Kurtley Beale earlier, it defies belief.
It's
It
like we
defies
found,
belief.
It's like we found a fault in the law.
Did it go backwards?
He's facing the try line. He's facing the Wallabies
thought-
try line.
I'm with everyone.
He hangs his hand out. He brings his hand in a slappy motion down. It's not like he's tapping it back or raking it back. It goes down in front of him.
But if the ball goes back, is it play on? No, he still played it. What's the rule there?
If the ball goes back, it's
But
play on.
do you think it went backwards? The ball lands in front of him.
My physics ain't that good. Look, all I'm saying is that it's almost a fault in the laws because it's not about the action, it's about which way the ball
Comes off your
bounces
hand,
there.
yeah.
If it did go, if that's down and it went there, it seems to be play on. If it goes there,
He's off.
if it goes there, it's a yellow card.
Yeah.
That can't be the difference. It's either got to be the action is a fault or we make it a less stringent infringement
Why
for
was
other
Curly
guys.
given a yellow card, not just a penalty? There were 3 Wallabies defenders there. Wales were not scoring from that play. Josh Adams had half a metre to work with if that ball does get shifted to the outside. O'Connor was there. Kellaway was across in cover, and Kirtley lightly spins and gets back to help cover up again as well. So why was that yellow and not a penalty? And then why is the other one a try? I don't understand.
The Kirtley one for mine is not backed up by the laws of the game, but it's not inconsistent with some of the things we've seen around those. At the moment, it seems if you go for an intercept and you don't get it, you're gone. There's been the Bowden Barrett situation is the exception.
There's no consistency with any of it.
That's why I say peel that right back. I don't want to see yellow cards for those actions of Kirtley Beale. The other one is, this try is, I feel for the referees because if they think it went an inch backwards, then it is play on in the laws. So the laws need to change. I do feel for the referees here in the directives they're copying from above.
I flicked a high-profile ref a message around it as soon as it happened, who was up watching, and straight off the bat said, no way, no how.
Is that Steve Walsh Jr.? Yeah. Sorry, no, I love Steve.
Well, you would have said, I wouldn't have made that.
Steve Walsh Jr., yeah. I would have made that mistake.
He'd have been up, he's up.
So that shows you the inconsistency across it, where you've got a guy who has been refereeing all his life at an international level who says off the bat to me, no, that is not a try. Yet here we've got a TMO weighing in over there in Cardiff. And this has been the other big blight across all these Autumn Series games, Tucky, is the TMO. It's just non-stop TMO. TMO this, TMO that, weighing in left and right on everything.
How much longer are the games going because of this?
Oh, mate.
You guys, in the telecast, you guys would know because you understand.
Jeez, the sun was well and truly up.
I was late for nippers on Sunday morning.
The Aussie England game, that went forever. Yeah. That was a long, long one. But then I think the one on the weekend went longer again.
It's turned NFL, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
And look, and we love the game, but ball in play time went down up there, and the length of the fixture went longer.
I would have loved it because it would give me more rest. Yeah. I would have absolutely I loved it. I'd always be saying that a bloke go take a quick tap, I'd pull him up. You don't take that quick tap. We're going for goal. I'm going to rest. So all these stopping would be great for the front rowers. I would love it.
Well, it's fun. Look, it's drawing a long bow, but maybe the game going so long and recovery being so high, the fatigue's going out of the game. Maybe the high impacts get bigger as well because of the lack of fatigue. Now, that's a long bow to draw. But there's issues in the game. Whoever is dictating to the referees what to do with laws, Joel Judge and whoever's taken over from Joe Schmidt in running that high-performance arm, have a lot of work to do. The other side here, we've seen, I'm sure we'll talk about Dave Rennie come out and rigorously defend his side.
Normally the most laid-back, calm, relaxed, non-plus customer ever. Yeah. And
he's your barometer. When we were training.
It's amazing what 3 losses will do. That'll turn any coach. 3 losses in a row.
When we were playing, if Chris Whittaker walked in one day and said, I'm a bit sore today, training's been a bit hard, mate, they send us to 10-pin bowling or something. Because he never wins stuff. If Duck and I came in and said we're tired, we got laughed at.
Yeah.
But he's like a barometer guy.
Yeah.
I reckon Dave Rennie should be a barometer person. If he's saying there's something wrong, there's something wrong.
Yeah, so Tucky, he came out post-game and very rare. It wasn't an outburst, it was measured, but he described some of the refereeing as horrendous. And after 20 years, he'd said that was the first time he'd come out and had a dip at it. I guess that leads me to my next question. We're going to get into it with Tommy Decent from the SMH in just a second as well, because he's well and truly across it. What do we want from these guys? Do you want honesty from coaches? We complain that they're too vanilla at one stage. If he sees it that way, likely there's going to be some punishment to come. Where do you guys sit on that? Are they to sit there and applaud them? What's the right way for a coach or a captain to deal with it in the aftermath when they're steaming with what's happened? What are they to do?
It's about getting a result. That's the last game of the year, I get it. But I know in rugby league, some of the coaches have a spray on purpose. They're happy to fine because they need to make. Unfortunately, that's the only way you get change. Yeah, it might be the right thing to do, but if there's some terrible decisions and it's just obvious that things haven't gone right, it's almost like my missus says to me, I have to be angry, I have to shout at you, otherwise you don't change. You know what I mean? If I just say you did the wrong thing and let it go, you won't actually ever change the behaviour. So maybe it's the same thing with ref. They need to be scolded publicly, at least so we get the result. Yeah. So look, I'm not one for giving refs a hard time after games. I'm all for it in the change room after, give them a spray face to face, but I don't think it's good to do it after the game. But I think in this occasion, it was pretty poor.
Well, it's hard enough to bring refs through. It's hard enough to get people to referee the game. So the more we berate them, the harder it is to bring refs through. Balancing that with the modern game, how professionally it's run, how it's a big business, right? Where's the accountability?
But this is Team O too. We're not talking about the guy in the middle.
Yeah.
It's more Team O.
It's a team.
That's what. Yeah.
It's a team of them. You're right.
Which might be the issue.
Which
the team seems to be an interesting. Anyway, so I don't mind the accountability side of it. Poor old Dave Rennie, he can't ring Nick Politis and say, "Look, Uncle Nick, will you pay the 10 grand if I have a crack?" But I'd love to see. So what I've loved about rugby in Australia this year is the chairman Hamish McLennan at every point has stood up for the game and the Wallabies. I'd love him to go to World Rugby and say, what are you going to do about this?
There's more to come on this.
Because it's not good enough. And 21 cards were issued in this autumn international series, 21 cards, 17 against the visiting teams and 4 against the home nations in Italy and whatnot. So there's a bit going on there as well. Now is that home ground bias, crowd, whatever, but all that stuff is supposed to be negated by a TMO who looks at footage in a little box. Gee, it's interesting that the away teams are always getting it wrong.
Quick recap on how you've seen the Wallabies this year, Matt Dunning. What's your takeaway been before we just quickly jump into France and NZ and England, South Africa? What have you liked about what the Wallabies have put together this year?
Look, my takeaway is if we can get our best 23 on the paddock, it's good. Yeah, like that's my takeaway. It's simply it might sound very basic, but autumn series, no Quade Cooper, even more, no Karevi. You imagine you had Quade Cooper and Karevi that side when we start getting a few second rowers back. I just see a really good mix of a team here. Yes, we haven't got the depth the All Blacks have got. We've never had the depth the All Blacks got. We're never going to have the depth the All Blacks. But it's all about our top 15, 23. And I like seeing Skelton, Rhoda back. I like second rowers back. We've got some depth there. That was a problem during the year. Much better, and our backs look good, So I think that's my takeaway.
Okay.
But, and the other takeaway is, after seeing us beat South Africa, then South Africa beating New Zealand and us being so uncompetitive against New Zealand, the thing I take out about beating New Zealand, you can't beat I'll tell you what, I almost came out. You can't beat New Zealand playing New Zealand's game. Like, you don't, but Tyson Fury doesn't go in and fight Deontay Wilder and try to out haymake him. There's no way you do. He's going to lose that fight every day. He finds a style that beats Wilder, and he beat him. He beats him twice, probably 3 times. Yeah. But then and that's what the Springboks do to beat New Zealand. They don't play their game, and that's my biggest takeaway. If we're going to beat New Zealand, we've got to find a way to our style to beat them.
You like where the Wallabies are at with World Cup a couple of years away. You like the way they're building. You like the depth in that squad. Obviously, you've just touched on that.
Yeah,
you like the way they're playing as well.
I'm more a cattle guy. Like, I'm not going to try to tell Rennie how he's going and say this is the way it should be coached, because he knows what he's doing. Like, and there's other coaches who have probably got a better insight into that. And I haven't played the game close enough. Yes. But what I can identify is the talent and the people we got there. Yep. And if we have the right talent, surely our coaches are good enough to mould them into a good team. And I think they're there. Just got to get them all together on the paddock. I love the rule where players are more eligible now. I think that's better for us to win. Now the whole national game might get involved in that if it's bad for Australian rugby or good. But I know it's good for Australian side being the best side it can be.
Speaking of the best sides going forward, we got a glimpse potentially at a World Cup finalists on the weekend. We had it earmarked as potentially the test match of the year. France 40, New Zealand 25. Morgs, you were glowing in your description of what those sides took to start the other day. It was something else. How good was that game?
It's just rugby, how it can be played, should be played, how we'd love to see it played. New Zealand played well in patches. Geez, they were good to come back. But France, when they got some confidence, scoring early off that maul was so crucial to them. And New Zealand coming up to them eye to eye on the scoreboard, and France being able to re-accelerate, that was huge. I told you about Dupont. I told you.
World Rugby Player of the Year nominee.
How good is he? Enter-Mac, good. Melvin Jaminet, right? He scored point upon point in Test footy. Do you know where he's playing last year?
Second division, Perpignan.
He was at Perpignan in Pro D2.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, they've got 40 professional teams. He wasn't good enough to make the top 14 professional teams. He was at the team that was the best in Pro D2, and he's carving up international rugby. They were good everywhere. Physical, set piece, big scrum when they needed it, and the line break from behind their own try line. Everything about that test match was brilliant.
18 points the difference at the break, Tucky. Kate Lorimer, our stats guru, tells us that it was the biggest ever All Blacks deficit at halftime. That's how hard and quick and clean the French jumped out. You've been over in that part of the world. The crowd was so into that matchup. They were so behind it. How hard is it? Like, give us an idea as to how hard it is to go up against France when the crowd are in full voice, waving their flags, allez, bleu. Like, how tough is it to turn when they're up riding that high?
It's an interesting team, France, and Morgs. No, you've gone over and played. And I had 7 weeks in Biarritz. That's all I lasted. I lasted 7 weeks. It was a good 7 weeks. I failed the medical. It wasn't my liver. It was my neck, but it should have been my liver. Anyway, I've got a few stories. Some I can't tell. Anyway, it's another story. Anyway, but how good are they at home when they got their tail up? They're like, and France have always been this way. My dad used to tell me this story when I was a kid, when I first watched Serge Blanco and those guys play. The French at their best can beat anyone in the world, but then they can go and lose to Tonga or Samoa. Not Tonga and Samoa bad, but they could lose to a second tier two nation. But when they get their tails up, when they're playing at home, there's no team that plays better. And I just love the mix they got. I didn't watch the game, I watched a bit of the highlights, but the mix and their forward play is been great throughout the whole Six Nations. Their mauling, their scrummaging's been great. And they appear to have the personnel now that they're really setting themselves for this World Cup coming up in 2023. So it's going to be a great World Cup in France. Can't wait for it. And nothing will make that World Cup better than having France being a strong side and a real contender.
That's their issue probably, is the pressure that will come now, the expectation. They're up there now. Everyone's going to be watching them. They'll have pressure on them in Six Nations to replicate performance. Their guys play lots and lots of footy. Especially Ntamack and Dupont will go back and play for Toulouse. They'll play deep into European Championship games as well. Can they deal with the expectation of a home final? But the flip side of that is, if they do, once they get momentum, they play with emotion. They have that sort of Latin side of them that is emotion. If they get momentum,
the Gaelic side.
Yeah, but
is that right?
Yeah, but it's that they've got that. We're talking about with the Argies and the Italians. It's sort of that side of them. They're a bit more like that. I'm not sure. My history is not brilliant. My geography is not great either. But whatever it is, it's. I find the Anglo-Saxon side is process and what are we going to do to get to that point. On one side, it's emotion, it's change room together, it's tears in the change room, and when that turns really positive and they're on, they are unstoppable. They'll beat anyone.
And it can be the way. It can get the way.
The issue is doing that for winning 4 big games to win a World Cup. You normally got to win 4 big games. You got to win 1 big pool game and you got to go quarter semi-final. That's going to be the one. If they can match their performance with consistency, and the key bloke in that could be a guy like Sean Edwards, who we highlighted during that Wallabies France Test series, he might give them that edge.
Yep.
They are ones to
and
watch.
Game 1 of the World Cup.
Yeah.
New Zealand, France,
I
game
know.
1.
How good. I tell you what, it really stamps the form of the Wallabies win against France when they came down here earlier in the year as well, because a number of the guys that starred down here in Australia are now doing it against the All Blacks on the weekend, Cameron Woki and a couple of other blokes as well. So that was 40-25 full time there. And the other big game from the weekend, England 2, good for South Africa. Redemption off the back of their World Cup defeat. Eddie Jones gets one back across the South Africans.
Yeah, I like this game. I love the last 30 minutes when both teams at times had to chase the games. I like it when South Africa have to chase a game because they play well.
Yeah.
They have their model that works for them, but they've actually showed, especially over in the north, they've got a plan B. A little bit more than we've seen previously, I think. And when they had to chase the game, they did enough to chase tries and to get in front. And England, they responded well. I think they would have been, sounds silly, disappointed with their performance against Australia.
Yep.
I think they would have loved the result, obviously, but I think they would have wanted to have played well with the opportunities and possession they had. That was a Group 1 blue chip performance. They're on the way up, and I think you've seen the future of English rugby with Marcus Smith.
And we had a bloke from your neck of the woods, from your old club side, Tucky, get his first crack at international level. Nick Dolly played his junior footy with the Woods, with Eastwood, and has gone over and got, you speak about guys who come from second division, who was playing with it'll count Jersey, I think it was, which is championship footy over there in England, below the premiership, and Eddie Jones saw something in him that he liked, and he got a crack on the weekend. He got game time. Yeah,
we've seen a few like Rafi Quirk, we've seen a few guys start to come through. It's a different model of English rugby player, a bit more open to play. It'll be an interesting way to see how Beaver can mould that group. And obviously, all eyes on now, 2022 3-test series, Rennie versus Jones, England versus Australia, back over here for the first time since 2016.
Quick enough.
I'll tell you one thing about international rugby, though. The separation is so little now. Like it's almost like Soccer World Cup. Anyone could win. Like it's so good to see. Like for years in rugby, there's been 2 or 3 teams that can win a World Cup, and the rest maybe. But the way we're looking at 23 is we could have 8 teams that could possibly be right up there.
Tuck, you're reading my mind.
Mate.
No, you are. You're reading my mind. Because I'll quickly rattle through the remaining results from the weekend just to reinforce your point, which is an excellent one. Georgia and Fiji, 15 apiece. Romania beat Tonga. Italy just beat Uruguay. Scotland home by 9 against Japan. The only blowout from the weekend was Ireland destroying Argentina, a 14-man Argentina. So that just brings it back to your point. It was like a World Cup on the weekend, and a lot of those sides couldn't be split.
It's great. Like it's the best thing about we've always when it comes to rugby league, only 1 or 2 teams can win, and it's not a real World Cup. And rugby's been a little bit like that, but this World Cup leading in, it's going to be so good with so many teams. So much, rugby as a world game is in a wonderful spot. Like we've got all the dramas of the rule, we've got all these other dramas we talk about. But the thing we don't talk about is how good the game is going from a fan basis. I know in Australia it might be struggling at times. It might be seen, and it's definitely not a resurgent. What you guys at Stands are doing has been a big part of that. But globally, our game is just thriving. Yeah,
huge crowds, full houses all the way around. Amazing games from the weekend. And now time to look at some of the lighter stuff and some of the heavier stuff from across the last few days. Well, Tucky, you step out, buddy. Morgs and I will get us through this next little bit. And we're going to start it off we're going to go back to the Naki in their big win in the end against Otago, bringing the mullets and then bringing the noise in defence, Morgs. And Duhan Fundermerve got in on against Japan as well.
Sit down, young man. More high contact. Keep an eye on that TMO.
Yeah, marks on Sinclair as well. There was no love lost in that World Cup rematch. And how about the skills from Halaholo?
Yeah, Ikatau's a hot stepper, but so is Halaholo. Too good for Beal as well off that right step and the head step. I love that.
Filthy feet. There's plenty of good skills on offer on the weekend. In fact, more of the no-look passing away there for England, who end up scoring that try, not being the match-winning lead that they set up. Speaking of no-look, Morgs.
Oh, super this one. Right through the no-look try-assist grubber.
That ain't easy. It ain't easy being Paisami on that front. Wales v Canada as well. We had the women internationals roll through the weekend as well. New Zealand got beat again handsomely. We had Wales and Canada going out. Nice try there. And this one too. Keep an eye on this bloke next year in Super Rugby. Morgs. Naholo.
Another Naholo. Kini Naholo, yes.
Yeah, by Saki now. Other big winners on the weekend. Waikato in the Waikato beating Tasman, putting away the Marcos. That ended up being another match.
Great to see
winning lead.
Liam Messam get a good win there.
From the Mulu man. And then finally, blooper time from Buffelli on me. Dio. How'd he miss that one? And then the Gilbert into the lens of the camera at start. And we finish it off with the mullet men. They started with 1, we finished with 2 and 3. Mullet time in the Naki, winners all round, and time now to get to Tommy Decent as against the headlines. All right, from the lighter stuff now into some of the more serious insights into what's going on in the world of rugby. It's our great pleasure, Morgs, to bring in one of our absolute favourites from the SMH, one of the head rugby writers, Tommy Decent. Tommy, how you doing?
Boys, has the Stand Sport Mad Monday started yet, or not yet?
Good one. Our budget doesn't extend that far, unfortunately. We're not on those big SMH dollars, buddy, so it might just be a pie down the road and a couple of scoos for Morgs and I. Tell me, fella, Dave Rennie, we've touched on it already here on Between Two Posts, but give us the latest and what might be coming down the road for the Wallabies coach.
Oh, look, it's been reported that Dave might be in a bit of hot water for what he said after the game. Obviously, he had a bit of a gripe with Maurice Jonker, the TMO, and some of those decisions that were made. Felt that the same decisions and bad calls were made 2 weeks ago. An apology was made. And look, Rennie doesn't often come out and have a pop at the refs, and I appreciate that, but I think he felt that there was a time and a place to do so. Look, World Rugby might come down hard on him. I mean, obviously, there's a bit of a precedent with Rassie Erasmus, but it's not the same at all. And if we look at precedents as well, Michael Checker in 2017 on that spring tour was seen to be mouthing the word cheats, which was quite an interesting week. He refused to do media after. It was pretty filthy and then got cleared. It was a bit of a slap on the wrist. So intriguing Dave's timing of it as well, given there are no tests in the year left. I mean, obviously the next one is England next year. We hope it's not serious enough that he would miss that. And I don't think it would be, but I'd be curious to get what you guys think on that. He just clearly was aggrieved a long year and felt the Wallabies just weren't getting the rubber to green, right?
Yeah, it was an interesting one because I sort of went, when we were talking about it, as an emotional reaction. Then he sort of doubled down at the press conference and said, no, it was considered. Do you think that was a little bit tactical from him? One, he's going back to the Gold Coast to lie on a beach for a couple of months to do a review so he can afford a bit of gardening leave. Or do you think he's trying to get a result? And did you find it interesting that he said they were getting apologies for getting things wrong through the process with World Rugby Review? What's going to happen there with the officiating relationship with coaches?
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, obviously coaches are pretty calculated with their timing and everything as well. Maybe he thought after the Scotland game it wasn't smart to come out and actually say that. I don't think World Rugby would appreciate head coaches coming out and saying every time there's been a apology made behind closed doors. But will anyone remember this in 7-8 months' time when England come to these shores and whoever's officiating that? Look, I don't know. I just think it was at least acknowledge the fact that he doesn't pop referees very often, and he felt there was a time and a place. I know Rugby Australia are going to make a formal complaint about that game again. There was an apology. We'll obviously find out about that, but I can understand where Dave's coming from. But yeah, he did double down and he didn't mince his words. Look, I've been a part of multiple Michael Checker press conferences where he's bagged refs and got away with it, and nothing's happened. So I'd be staggered if they actually do sanction him, to be honest.
Tommy, before we jump into the latest step in the saga that is Rassie Erasmus, try or no try for Wales' Nick Tompkins on the weekend, which led to part of Dave Rennie's outburst?
No try. I mean, Welsh reporters and media and punters are trying to, argue that pretty heavily. I can see both sides of that as well. I mean, I know we're not rugby league, but anyone who's a league fan and watches that would say automatically it is. Rugby, possibly not. Look, I'm on the fence. I can see both sides of the argument.
No, hang on a second. He just goes, no try, and then goes, oh no, the Welsh will come after me. The Welsh reporters, I love their banner. They've been quite wound up over the whole thing, Tommy Decent.
Oh, big time. And look, I appreciate that. I think obviously Nick Tompkins' face probably gave it away that he didn't think it was. Am I going to stay on the fence?
Yeah, all right.
I don't think he wants his free drink. He wants his free drinks at Revs in Cardiff.
Walkabout next time he's on tour. From Rennie to Rassie Erasmus, what's the latest on the social media front from the banned South African director of rugby?
Oh, well, it was memes a few days ago. Then it was drinking pints of Guinness at one point. Then he was sipping on whiskey with a South African flag in the background saying, well done, England. Mate, I have to be careful what I say with Rassie Erasmus, but look, the 4-month wait for that was ludicrous, wasn't it? To finally come out and, punish Rassie. Obviously, we know the punishment there. 2 months of no rugby contact or anything. He's going to be out of action with the team in match day stuff until September next year. So that means he can't be involved when Wales do come out to South Africa. But I think it's totally fair enough. That 62-minute rant was next level. Nick Berry doesn't deserve that. I mean, obviously, officials get frustrated at referees at time, but that was a different kettle of fish, wasn't it? I think that when Nick comes out and says that that's caused him immeasurable damage and it was a character assassination, I think that's totally fair enough. Andy Marinos was very strong on that when it happened at the time. And I think it was actually nice that Nick's comments were published in that document by World Rugby. I don't think Rassie Erasmus cares too much. A $37,000 fine in Australian dollars to maybe, influence what happened after that. Rand. Well, it was 37,000 equivalent, I think. I'm not sure what the actual rand figure was, but it's absolute, not a lot of money for them to possibly sway a line series. Whether or not it happened, I don't believe it, but what do you guys think?
Well, you sort of brushed over a little bit. Do you think the timing was interesting? There's always talk of World Rugby and the home nations being too close. The Southern Hemisphere nations aren't that happy with some of the things that have gone on this month. The fact that it really dominated the England versus South Africa week is the timing that way?
Why was it so long before they reached? We all agree that the decision reached was likely the correct one, Tommy. But what was the reason that took that long? Was it just getting everything in a row or the ducks in a row?
Can't take 4 months, can it? Seriously, to actually get those ducks in order. We know that if players get a charge hanging over them on a Saturday, we usually find out by the Monday or Tuesday what's happened. I understand it's a little bit different because coaches don't go under the microscope like this. We thought Sanzar was slow in some of these things, but World Rugby's really taken it to another level, for being honest. It's good fodder. It had to get thrown out. not the worst week to toss it out. I mean, obviously, it had to get done before the end of the year. But he's going to spend 2 months of that time on holidays, probably doing the same thing and posting weird things to social media. I just the timing of it's poor. I mean, obviously the test leading into next year, TRC will be affected, but maybe there was more to it. I'm not sure.
It's I think it was just to keep you busy through the back end of the year, Tommy. Normally you're on a eastern suburbs beach with the feet up, drinking a cocktail with a parasol in the top of it, and they just want to keep you on your toes. You try and stay busy for us across the next little bit, mate. We can't wait to see your words in print again in 2022, and thanks for all you've done in terms of covering the game this year. You are a gun.
Thanks, man. Appreciate the coverage and look forward to next year, eh?
When we're talking 2022, we've got to now, fellas, get into the Super Rugby Pacific squads, which have just dropped. I like that we can get looking ahead to that now with the nationals behind us. Let's rattle through them. We'll go through the Aussies and the Fijians. What are you liking about with the Brumbies? Let's start with the Brumbies. Go to Dan McKellar's man. He's last year in charge down there in the Berra. Who are we liking? Who have we got our eyes on for the year to come?
Well, I think generally I like that they're settled. And we know that they've got quality. And, you know, we did all 3 games, I think, Sean, together. We know they were that far from beating the Reds and then winning the comp. So they're not going to be any worse, the Brumbies. They've lost probably some of their second-tier guys, and then they've consolidated. Ed Kennedy's come back from, I think it was at Scarlets in Wales. He's come back to bolster them in that sort of second row, back row, number 6 spot. But you look at the names, Valentini and Samu there in the back row again, then a fight for the other positions. The one player I want to watch this year is Jerome Brown.
Yeah.
I saw enough to think he could be the best of the lot.
Wow, okay.
He's a gun.
Back rower.
Injured.
He did get plenty of game time.
And then he got injured. And I know they rate him down there, and I think he's a really important cog in the way they want to play. I reckon he's one to watch, Tuck. Front row, similarly, Alalatoa and Slipper and CO. Gee, that gives you an advantage, doesn't it?
Mate, any team with 10 front rowers in it, any squad, that'll be a fun team, wouldn't it?
Well,
a lot of fun.
And we'll talk about it in a minute. Brumbies have 4 hookers. 3 of them are Wallabies.
Yeah.
And the Tars only have...
Who am I missing is the...
Lonigan.
And, yeah, of course, Lockie. Yeah,
and the Tars have named 2 hookers.
Right.
They got Dave Ferrecki and Tom Horton, but we'll get to them. So when you talk about centralisation, maybe there's one for it. The Brumbies have 3 Wallabies, 4 hookers, and the Tars have only named 2.
Yeah, look, the centralisation thing's an interesting thing. It's always been with rugby in Australia, how, if you've got more Wallabies, you've got a bigger pool of money. So the Brumbies, the rich get richer. The Brumbies will be very good this year again, I think, and I think I'll expect them to finish top 1 or 2 by far.
Tucky, just a couple more names to throw in your direction, and this speaks a lot to a number of players returning from overseas. They picked up Chris Fiowai Sortia, and Jesse Mogg returns to Canberra as well. How good is it seeing these guys, we've talked about this a lot this year, go offshore and come back, and 9 times out of 10 they come back as better players?
Yeah, I definitely. I think
like Tuck, at the Western Force,
Look, I think it's awesome. I think the experience to be able to go away, play, experience a different mindset of coaching, a different lifestyle with your family. I think it's a bit of a freshen up while still playing rugby. It's sort of like, I think it's a great thing. I think the sabbatical's great if it works in with the team, and if they're coming back, even better. But I think it's good for Australian rugby. I think especially in our front row, like years ago, it would a great help to send a few of our young front rowers off, do a bit of trade in northern England in the freezing cold and scrum under those conditions. It only helps. So I think it's an awesome thing.
One of your 2 former Super Rugby teams, Tucky, the Western Force, stay fairly solid on what they put down in 2021. They picked up Rishan Pasatoa from the Brumbies. He's a decent in for them ahead of next year. And Bailey Kunzel as well, Morgs. He adds plenty of utility value there at the Force.
Yeah, I think they're the improvers. From what we saw last year.
Finalists.
I think they'll improve on that. I think they'll kick away from the Rebels and the Tars, and I think there'll be some challenges for Brumbies and Reds to play them. And obviously being right across Super Rugby Pacific, they're definitely a team that have built on their squad this year. When there's the top 2 teams look a little bit status quo. Love the addition of Matteelli. That's a big pickup in the backfield, and also Medrano's going to be there again. Greg Holmes, Was he
I
retiring?
thought he was done.
I thought he was talking about
You could've-
coaching. Gets a Wallabies cap. He's going around again, it looks like.
I spoke to Holmesy after his Wallaby cap, said g'day, and he's just enjoying it.
Yeah.
So when I spoke to him, he just said, mate, I just really enjoy it.
Oh, it's unreal.
Mate, if you're enjoying it and your body's good, why would you retire?
Why would you stop?
Mate, the emails and the mobile phones, and, they're all there. Mobile phone for working purposes. I know the players are very good on mobile phones, but it's all there when you retire anyway.
Yeah.
So I think, why not? And if Holmesy does right with his money, I think all he wants to do is fish anyway.
Is he?
He wants to run,
One was a fishing boat.
and he'll just run a charter, a fishing
Right,
charter. That'd be
that's
his
it.
dream job. He's running a charter off WA, taking people out fishing every day.
Going wide, chasing
He'd be loving
tuna.
it. Yeah, he loves it.
Shark diving and fishing.
He
He's in the
loves
right
it all.
place.
He'll,
Yeah,
fish,
so.
he'll jump in the water and fish with spears,
so-
anything.
Yeah, and another
Nice.
year of Kaitu, a bit more mature,
Yeah.
and then obviously Rodder.
Yes.
Will
He's a massive in.
Yeah.
Melbourne Rebels, very similar squad to what they had in 2021. There's one name that's been mentioned a lot in this off-season. We're going to hear a lot more of him in the year to come as well. Blonde bombshell, Carter Gordon, who has got, it would seem, oodles of talent to work with, and he's going to get plenty of game time in the year to come.
Yeah, they've gone all in. They've named him as their only fly half. Obviously, Matt Tu'umua can be a stopgap there, one of the world's best stopgaps, really, if they want to. But Dave Rennie was very clear. He sees Matt Tu'umua as a centre, as a 12. So it would be great to see Carter Gordon make that position his own and have Matt Tu'umua outside him as a 12, helping him and also freeing up Matt to play his more natural game, I think, probably at 12. And Joe Powell at 9, who is a vastly experienced number 9 now. So it's a really good little trio to work together to try and accelerate Carter Gordon's development.
Yep, keep an eye on him in 2022. For the Reds, again, it's that real strong nucleus. They've got a massive number of high-quality back rowers to work with. The name that jumps out at me from their squad list, Tom Liner. Yep, a liner back at Queensland.
Well, there's expectation. There's a lot of excitement around him. So it's going to be great just to see the kid play some footy week in, week out. You'd think you'd get lots of game time in a Reds backline that's not easy to break into. Oozing with Wallabies everywhere. They probably felt unlucky that they won Super Rugby AU, played so well and didn't have more representation at Wallaby level. So there'll be some individuals there that have a lot to play for this season. They want to prove themselves against New Zealand teams, which is what they didn't do well going into Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, and they want to exert dominance in that Australian part of the draw. It's not a conference anymore. So you look at some of the individuals that might have felt a little bit hard number. Tate McDermott, he wants that 9 jersey. O'Connor has to stave off a Quade Cooper now. Liam Wright, we've seen the Angus Scott Young story going over and playing NPC and playing exceptionally well, winning their players player. And then he gets to come back a more mature player. So there's lots of little individual stories right throughout this Red squad as they try and be the best Australian team once again.
Tucky, plenty of young guys coming through at the Tars who did it the tough way in 2021. Obviously didn't win a game. Maxi Douglas, huge out of the Manly club. We'll get the experience of Ned Hannigan, who will return in 2022. So too Michael Hooper. How big will he be? I did want to highlight one bloke because there's 3 blokes who will be gunning for that fly half jersey, and I'll lean on you from your Woods experience. Tane Edmed, the red-headed, talented number 10. How much of him do you reckon we might see in Tars colours?
Yeah, look, it's I'm a big fan of Tane. He's done a great job for Eastwood, but it's just like none of these guys have jumped out at Super Rugby level. And look, it's hard when you've had the record the Waratahs have had. And look, to be honest, seeing that team list, I'm a little worried. Like, starting with just, not even just joking, but having 7 front rowers, and the whole idea was about getting a tight head in the second rower. It was the real holes we had last year at the Waratahs. And I know your mate at Randwick, Tian, he's back, but look, that's a concern. We definitely needed a big second rower. We didn't get Rodder, and we needed a tight head. Hopefully that eventuates. But I'd love to see Harry Holmes playing, sticking at loose head with Angus as loose. There are 2 loose heads, and we really need some tight heads to stand out. And to do that, they're going to need a big second row too. Like, losing Rodder was a big loss, but this isn't. You can't expect the Waratahs to solve their problems in 1 year, I think. And this team, I think, is not going to win this conference, but I just want to see some improvement from last year. And I think the back end, the one improvement the Waratahs can take away is that their effort. Their effort was there, and they tried their guts out the back end. Let's hope they can put a performance this year that's credible, and they can at least start building. But it's not looking good with the squad they've got, I think.
How many wins over under? What would you set the line at for the Tars?
The over-under's probably got to be in the 2 or 3. That's the over-under. They could easily get a roll. If they are too good for the Enduro and Pacifica, which is not a fait accompli, and then you want, if they can sneak the Rebels and the Force in there in the top echelon of that side of the draw.
Jag one against a Curry too.
Well, yeah, and then you got to hope for the best. They got their hosting. I saw they're hosting the Crusaders on that Anzac round, so that's not a gimme. It's not like you have a good one there. So it's a tough year. Look, the issue around the Tars is it wasn't coaching. It wasn't any quick style of play. It was no quick fix. It's
back to what you said before. It's cattle. There was no one left.
Yeah, it's like they forgot. We've said it before. It's like they forgot there was going to be rugby after 2019.
Yeah,
they were not building for the future. And you look through it like Holloway and Hannigan back in Hooper.
Yep.
As big an in as there is, he's worth a couple of wins.
In the world.
He'll carry them to a couple, really. Tane Edmed, I couldn't agree more how good he is for Eastwood. Lucky he played Colts at Randwick. Became a good player there. Tian Toikipulu, who you mentioned, if he's fully fit, he's the starting tight head prop. Keep an eye out for him. He's an absolute gun. Came across from New Zealand. Had a knee reconstruction, had a few hammy issues. 100% fit. He's a gun and a starting tight head. And I can't wait to see Dylan Peach, who Sevens fans will recognise. I think he could be because he's just something different out in the wing. He's an animal. Goes hard at the ball, fast, good passing game. He could be anything at test at super level.
Easy to coach, super adaptable, and a good team man as well. Can't wait to see
Joey Walton injured, too, which is a big blow for the Tars because I think he's a very good player. I think he's done an ACL, so he'll be if at all in super, he'll be very late.
I know coaches hate hearing this, but 80% of coaching is recruitment. And I think they just haven't got it right, but hopefully
the other 19 selection. I like
that. Darren Coleman, who each of you know really well, will be looking to turn their fortunes around. And finally, Fiji in the Aussie Conference. I'll give you a couple of names to chase out of that setup there. Kaliona Nasoko, who is an absolute freak, will do it out wide for them, and Kitiona Talinga, who was the all-time Fijian try scorer on the Seven Circuit going back, I think, to 2016, an Olympic gold medalist as well. So plenty of strike power is expected for them, the Fijian and Drua. That's how they look for 2022, and this is how things looked across Stan's socials on the weekend, Morgs.
Well, the All Blacks have done it often enough. It's probably good that they get beaten and dominated sometimes. That's All Blacks fans.
I'll give it the voice. Stop! He's already dead.
Don't get past. Anything that counts will take you to stop you from coming through our line.
Is there anything worse so than stepping away from the lappy with the headphones in? Yoink. Yoink.
Lookalikes. We love a lookalike. This is a weird one, Sean Maloney.
Geez, that's tough sledding. I like his hair.
He's a good-looking rooster.
I'll take that.
You saw this one in commentary, Sean. This was amazing.
Yeah. Nick White, how good. And Steve Zielenthal, our man down in Canberra. I'm the captain now.
Number one
contributor. One of the great Captain Phillips quotes.
I am the captain now. Oh, Reece Zammit thinking what everyone was thinking, surely doesn't pass the pub test.
Hashtag Wales v Oz for some of the all-time gifts off the other side of Tompkins' try on the weekend.
You're the gift king after the weekend.
I've got 300 in the inbox, baby.
Wow. Normally a different sliding into inbox for you, but gift sliding in is a newbie.
Take it.
All right, Tuck, this is the real reason you're here. Touring with Turinui. I've told one story, it wasn't even about touring, and then I've just got good guests in who enjoyed touring as much as I did. Mate, maybe it's because of COVID, but I think we all miss it a bit more, Shawnee, than we used to. Is that true?
I agree. And the great storytellers that we've had through on Between Two Posts. Andrew Mertens.
Great.
Duncan McRae, former teammate of yours, was in doing his best as well. And who am I missing? Well, you were the week one, weren't you?
Yeah, Will Harrison. Yeah. He's got a long time to come up with a few stories. We might check back in with him in 10 years.
What do you got for us, Tuck?
Mate, well, I think firstly that the flag should be at half mast for Super Rugby at the moment without being on a tour to South Africa.
Oh.
Like flag should be at half mast.
I wouldn't have played the game.
Mate,
now.
This is the one indictment on Super Rugby is that you are ruining these boys' lives by not being able to. But you know what it is? It means it's added incentive to play for the Wallabies, so you can go to Africa. You know, the greatest place to tour in the world for many reasons. Some of them you can't even say, but it's just great. Like they love their rugby, they're passionate. You know, it's probably like Australia was in the 1970s. You know, there's less PC. You can go and have a good time. You're responsible for your actions. But I remember my first trip with the Waratahs to Africa, and I was especially pumped because I'm a terrible flyer. But the greatest thing about this when I was 21 or 22, whatever I was, is that you fly business class. And so I was so excited to be flying business class for the first time. normally I'm last on the plane. I'm first on this plane. I go, how good is this? You know, I'm with all the bloody senior players. You know, look at me going, look at this. You know, anyway. So I'm on there. I grabbed the Qantas pajamas. There's one size fit all, Sean.
Not true.
Not true. Mine looked like a midriff, had it on. So I'm there, mate. I've got all my drinks. I've got red wine, white wine. I've got a beer. I've got
everything.
Vodka Diet Coke. I've got all the drinks. I've got all the buns. And the plane's still being loaded. There's still passengers. All the economy people are still coming through. Look at this big fat prop. He's going, woo. And they're just going and just shaking their head. This is the best life of my. And I had all my sleeping tablets laid out too. You can't do that anymore. You know, I had all the different ones to take at different times and ready to go. And the stewardess came around and said, which paper would you like, sir? And I saw the Australian. I said, no chance of reading that. Herald, Telegraph. Grabbed straight Telegraph, got pictures. So I'm reading the paper, sitting there with my beer and my red wine, just mixing my drinks. How good's this? Reading my paper, feet up. Everyone's looking at me with this slob. You know, I get to this article. It's a Sunday paper. We're travelling after the game, and it says the BMI index and rugby players, and the BMI index, height versus weight. So I'm nervous, right? I'm nervous. I say I'm 6 foot, but I'm just under. I say, I hate to admit that, but and I'm 120 odd kilos, so I'm looking bad anyway. So I'm reading this article at the BMI index. It's supposed to be saying how it's a little bit of a sham, but they're not helping me himself. But anyway, got all these players. Got on the BMI index, Nathan Hindmarsh is obese. You know, then it says Phil Waugh is obese on the BMI index. I'm shitting myself. Right? Like, I'm going to be here for sure. Then I look on the last one and it goes, Dave Lyons is obese. I'm like, well, that's fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. He definitely is now, but he wasn't really playing. Sorry, Lino. Anyway.
Actually, you'll have to get him on.
Yeah, have to get Lino. He's a great tourist anyway. So anyway, I read it and I went, I've dodged a bullet. Obviously, they haven't remembered me. So I've taken my tablets, gone to sleep, passed out. I've just drunk half the cabins away. And it's when you're allowed to drink on planes. And anyway, then I wake up and it's like I can feel people watching me. And I wake up and they're all giggling and there's water all over my lap. Oh, I'm assuming it's water because I don't think I pissed myself. But they used to do all that shit. They throw water on you. They had sauce over my eyebrows under here and they're just laughing. And they kept laughing and laughing, text everywhere. And I'm going, mate, you do this every trip. Like, why is it especially funny? And I said, did you read the article? I said, I read the article. I said, I wasn't in it. I said, Phil Waugh was in it. I said, you were in it, Lino. I said, did you read the last paragraph? I said, no. And the last paragraph said, and we're able to play on one rugby player on the BMI index who was morbidly obese, Matt Dunning. So I was morbidly obese playing professional sport. And apparently I was the only one they could name as morbidly obese. But that's my one thing, the BMI index.
I was still at school, I think.
But I tell you what, it didn't hurt me in Africa. I was over in Africa and had a good time and we had some good rugby. But it was tough, but you know.
Oh, mate,
only makes you tougher being an overweight prop.
And you made it work, as we said, 45 games with the Wallabies, 90 with the Tars, 20 with the Western Force. It's been great catching up with you, Tuck. It really has. It's so nice to have a good rugby man and a great fella in with us as well. Hope you've enjoyed it.
No, it's been great. Thanks for being on, guys, and you're doing a great job. I really enjoyed the podcast.
You know, she's firing away. And don't forget that we've got Glory Days as well. That's worth having a look at. A lot of Tucky's old teammates, Jeremy Paul, who we got in there, Fat Cat, and a bunch of other guys on there watching old games. In fact, we should get you in for a Glory Days.
Because
we'll get you in for
Jeremy
Glory
Paul
Days.
One was just JP throwing
shocking line out.
It was terrible.
After shocking line out.
We'll try and find a good game for you.
So we'll find one of your breakthrough games.
Surely we find a drop goal Super Rugby game.
Still too soon. It's still too soon. Yeah, it's still too soon.
I would have liked to play finals that year, actually. It would have been nice.
So get your eyes around that. Glory Days, obviously on stand where you're catching this right now. And we've got some huge season in reviews to come a little bit later in the year as well, don't we, Morg? Some Christmas Day specials, Christmas crackers and the like.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year, and it's going to be good to just have a look at all of them and just see how much rugby we actually got through. I don't know how we made it in stand sport. And then also looking at what's to come next year. Could be bigger and better.
It's going to be massive. All that coming not long from now. Look after yourselves. Have a great Christmas. Have a terrific New Year. Super Rugby just around the corner. That's Morgan Turinui, Matt Dunning and Sean Maloney saying goodbye and see you again next year on Between Two Posts.